and welcome to the Raw Preview Podcast. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture, Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick, to look ahead to tonight's episode of Monday Night Raw. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts, where we not only review Raw and SmackDown, but also the Wednesday Night War between AEW and NXT pay-per-views. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week, complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. As I said, joined by Michael Hamflett and Michael Sidgwick to look ahead to Raw tonight, though. It is, of course, Austin 316 Day. But before we talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin being on Monday Night Raw, what do you think tonight's Raw is going to be like, and what did you make of SmackDown?
Honestly, I had one of the best times I've had in recent memory watching a live WWE television show. John Cena came out, and I looked at my watch, and it was like 10 to 2 in the morning UK time, and I couldn't believe that there was only 10 minutes left of the show. I don't think I felt like that since the year 2000, watching WWE television that was happening. I thought it was a blast. I was able to cope with Triple H using the default improv setting of bully and dickhead, because that's the only thing he can do on the hop, is just abuse people. But whether it was Michael Cole or whether it was context or whatever, I got loads of kicks out of it. Thought Bray Wyatt was actually good and suited an atmosphere they wouldn't have been able to manufacture if they actually had a crowd there.
Well, people don't react to him anyway.
Yeah, even stayed up and watched the 205 Live match along with John Cena sat in the crowd, giving them their biggest audience in months. I had a blast. It totally worked for me, and I couldn't be more excited about Steve Austin, The Undertaker, and Edge working an empty gym, because the man that is their boss is insane. Is insane.
I saw someone describe the promos that people were cutting, obviously, with, like you say, with no crowd to bounce off, like some sort of weird Beckett play. I also thought Bray Wyatt was genuinely eerie when he was just coming in. First of all, he popped through the audience. I like the fact that Cole and Cena were just like, where's this voice coming from? Oh, it's right there. But it was surreal, wasn't it?
I can't do it. I couldn't watch it, man. I couldn't do it. It's like there's been no effort made, or very little effort made, to depart from how a WWE show is usually produced. And it's kind of, considering it's this thing that it's meant to be an emulation of sport to begin with in front of fans. Like, it's already got that dissonance of how overproduced it is, and how it's an action-adventure soap opera TV series that is masquerading as a pro wrestling show. I already have problems with the presentation to begin with. Then you see it in this weird context. I could not at any point suspend my disbelief. Like, here's a little tiny detail that they could do theoretically to make the show more congruous to its new context. Like, I just saw Jeff Hardy come to the ring, immediately climb on the turnbuckles and do his whole thing. There's no one watching you. Don't appeal to a crowd that isn't there to try and get you like so galvanized and spirited as a babyface. You need the crowd's help to fight from underneath, because you're the smaller guy compared to Baron Corbin, so you're appealing to the crowd with your pose. It's like, there's no one there. There's nobody there. This thing is completely wrong. It's untenable. Instead...
Well, I was going to interrupt you there and sort of say what I anticipate people are going to guess that you're going to say. Someone like an MJF would have been... Because he's not on autopilot there. I can see him doing a move, going into the audience and sort of clapping himself. You need to break the monotony of what you're doing, no?
Well, that's the thing. If... This went all the way with sports entertainment. It's like, no. If anything, you need to emphasize the fact that you're a pro wrestler in this particular version. Pretend. Maybe it won't be entertaining for some. It certainly would be more congruous to me. Like, instead of appealing to a crowd that does not exist in this really jarring, stupid way, that took me completely out of it. In this thing, if the novelty was enough for a WWE apologist like Michael Hamflett, it's going to sure as hell run out within weeks. If that. Like, just make your way to the ring. You're there for a fight. Just do the thing where you're off the ropes and you're like warming up because you're going to have a fight. Like, I don't know, do some star jumps or something. Make it look like you're about to have a fight. Don't do it like you're about to have a performance, because there's no fans there. There's completely negating the performance aspect. Like, maybe I'm the wrong person to ask about this, but it just feels, the whole thing just feels so untenable. Not least because they're building towards a show that can't happen. And the reason why the show can't happen is a pretty big, grave and global concern. I can't get in the spirit of it at all. I'm sorry, it's just not for me.
I agree that it was enjoyable and a novelty and unique. I kind of also agree with Michael Sidgwick that is going to wear off very quickly.
For 3 hours.
Well, my question is going to be, how are they going to handle it tonight? Because it's not just Monday Night Raw, and it's not only going to be surreal again to have, 3 of their biggest legends coming out to absolutely zero pop. But, you know, on Friday night, as much as it was enjoyable, they just hoyed the Elimination Chamber match on there to kill a bit of time. That was 2 hours. This is 3 hours tonight.
It has occurred to me as we sit around this table, and you agree with both of us, the WWE, in all its pointlessness, has become the prism with which we view current events, because Sidgwick, with a lot of brutal pragmatism, has highlighted how this fundamentally can't work, and I am smiling and staring into infinite doom in the process, and those opinions will probably change and be formulated by ongoing changes. Daniel Bryan and Cesaro threw uppercuts in the break of a show that nobody could possibly watch. That was the COD psychologist tree falling in the wood and nobody around to hear it. And they punched each other really, really hard to the point where here's what you missed in the break. They had to play a replay. Right. I find it absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I felt like I was in the episode of Rick and Morty where they've got Infinite Universe cable, and somewhere that wrestling show is happening all the time in one of those alternate universes. That's SmackDown every week. And I thought, I've tuned in my telly to that this week, and thank God for daylight savings, because it's starting at midnight instead of 1 in the morning. I can stay awake and watch it, and I'm going to stay awake and watch this live. I cannot tear myself away from this stupid goddamn thing, and it will run out of juice. Of course it will. Like, there's only so much of this before the novelty of it wears off, before there isn't new funny takes with people having a whale of a time, because absolutely the drabbest part of SmackDown on Friday was the replay of the Elimination Chamber match, and I took to the SmackDown hashtag while that was ongoing to read how people were thoroughly enjoying themselves watching a wrestling show, for the better and worse of what it was. Bored while having to watch the actual product. That's what Elimination Chamber was the actual product that they sell to you. And people were like, oh God, this shit again. Can we not go back to the empty gym? Like,
well, it's like there's no crowd at Elimination Chamber anyway.
The thirst for something different, for something that looks different, for something that feels different, for the wrestlers having, and I disagree with Sidgwick slightly, because they did take on a sort of weird agency by embracing the odd circumstances they were placed upon. Bayley and Sasha had never looked so over as heels because they were working the non-crowd. I wish they had that charisma when they were in front of a real audience, because I felt like I actually believed it for a change.
Nikki Cross was great.
Nikki Cross was absolutely fantastic, the absurd fool that this character is. Some of these characters are so poorly drawn, like weekly, that they suit an environment like that, because it just pulls at all those loose threads, like pulls at all those details. AEW, being fundamentally a better and newer product, is going to struggle to work as well as WWE, because WWE's broken. Do you know what I mean? Like Daly's place for an episode of Dynamite.
Not happening anymore.
Well, like, or the empty arena, because Big Shad owns it, doesn't he? So, like,
no, the city owns it.
Big Shad probably owns the city. It's Jacksonville, baby. Like,
it's not happening in Daly's place. It's happening in a studio. Let's not lose our credibility here.
The Sugar Granddaddy, should he to run an empty building, wouldn't work as well, because WWE's product suits this stupid situation.
I don't even want to see either of them, to be honest.
And this is the thing, I think, like the good wrestling shows, I've got no thirst for it. Honestly, I've got no thirst for seeing Dynamite or NXT, the shows I like, play out to this sort of situation. Raw and SmackDown, totally different. More of it.
Now, today is, of course, Austin 316 Day.
A day that will live in infamy.
He is going to be there tonight, guaranteed. Him and The Undertaker, I do believe, are already there, so no travel issues akin to what happened to Paige on Friday. What do you see Stone Cold Steve Austin doing tonight? And, I mean, kind of as an extension of that, who is eating a stunner tonight on Monday Night Raw?
Look, right, if there's anyone who can make any of this vaguely work, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What? Silence. What? Like, never is that catchphrase in my
I'm so glad there's no dickheads in the audience to do that, though.
It would be totally Stone Cold Steve Austin for him to do that and for it to be actually likable and endearing. Like, the one time you think, oh, well, at least with no fans, you won't get the awful watch chance. Here's Austin to actually do it, but to also make it work, because he's awesome and he's Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, he's going to do something to build towards Drew and Brock. Like, if we're looking at this and thinking they did an all right job of the intimacy of Roman Reigns' sit-down interview, it could have been accomplished backstage without being in front of an empty gym. Like, they could have done that. They could concentrate the product. If it needs to be pumped out, they could do a succession of these character-building exercises with vignettes, etc. For Stone Cold Steve Austin, because the entire idea of the character will be compromised by the fact that there's no one popping their tits off in the face of him. He's really good at podcasting. He's a really good conductor of interviews. He could theoretically adapt all of those skills that he actually has to one, if not two or three, similar sit-down interviews in the ring.
That. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So he could do that. I don't know what big Mark Calloway is going to do.
The Austin thing, what Sidgwick's drilled into there is, like, use him loads. you have 3 hours in an empty building. So get as much Steve Austin on. Basically, the opposite of what they did at Raw 25. Don't put him out in the opener with no words. Like, if he's around and willing, then he's very, very able, more so than 90% of your roster.
The need to, for my personal taste, I don't know if this is reflected in the consensus, but they need to be cuter. I know they were cute to a degree, but they need to be even cuter about the context in which they're working, because it's such a harebrained idea to build towards WrestleMania in light of what's going on. Like, have The Undertaker, I know I'm jumping ahead, come out and cut one of his promos, and then he gets interrupted by AJ Styles, and AJ Styles can say something to the effect of, you must be used to this. You were working empty civic centres back when you were on top and you're meant to be the legend. Like, constantly remind me.
I mean, he wouldn't be wanting to talk with AJ.
Constantly remind me of why we're here, what we're doing here. I don't want a jarring experience again. The whole point of this is big WWE is going to save the day and provide us all with our escapism when, quite frankly, we need it. But whether anyone's in the mindset for it is another matter. But yeah, I just don't want to see this weird, uncanny valley version of WWE. I saw it once, I got a mild thrill after a couple of minutes, and I just thought, this is just unwatchable. It betrays everything, not only what a pro wrestling show should be, but it betrays what this particular version of a pro wrestling show should be. It's meant to be the last escape, and if anything, it just reminds you of how unnecessary something like this is.
Steve Austin, if he is able to like banter off some heels or cut some really good promos throughout the show, should find himself faced with staring down the challenge as Raw goes off the air of Riddick Moss, who he hits with a stunner and wins the 24/7 title in the first title change to ever take place in the empty Performance Center in the Monday Night Raw era, ending the longest WWE title reign of all time that Riddick Moss can brag about. And like, Steve Austin has got this daft belt that is meaningless, but they might need him again in 3 weeks' time, or something stupid. Like, they can go big with something, like I say, headline grabbing in that daft Twitter sense. Like, there are opportunities for big visuals, and it's pretty much all they've got at the moment is to get big visuals. There was, people loved, and rightfully so, to a point, people loved how SmackDown looked. Like, you saw a lot of sharing. I think you might have done sharing of just the ring. It was like, this is going to be weird. I just want to look at this. I just want to look at stuff. And the WWE have the opportunity tonight. It's fallen into the lap with the likes of Austin and The Undertaker to give fans something to look at. The number for SmackDown was amazing. There might be an audience for this.
Speaking of this,
Well, that's generous.
2.4 million.
Yeah,
you know,
nah, man. But
curiosity views.
yes,
Trapped in the house views. You know, like there's
an audience.
Something's happening here, isn't it?
There's
like,
an audience, as has been pointed out, for Krusty running Krusty the Clown show in the wake of Absolute Oblivion. So, yeah, that's an audience, all right.
the Stingy and Bitey show.
Yes.
So Steve Borden versus Shayna Baszler.
Before we get to Shayna Baszler and Undertaker and AJ Styles, then, yeah, the concept of someone getting stunned tonight, I had sort of three ideas, and I don't know, how they're going to work this. There is the one the fans probably most want to see, which is, of course, Seth Rollins eating a stunner, considering the history with Kevin Owens and all that sort of thing. There is probably the one that Vince wants to see, which is R-Truth. As much as he's a fan favourite, and I don't want to see him get hit with something like that, although I'm sure he'd make it brilliant no matter what. And yes, the third option I was going to say is someone like Riddick Moss. Although, if I was Riddick Moss, I'd be in isolation right now.
Too much to protect.
So how do you see that going? Do you see it being Moss, Truth, or hopefully Seth Rollins?
Seth Rollins, but it's funny when you mention the mere words R-Truth, whatever part of my heart still beats for whatever this is, within the context of how it's happening, immediately I thought, oh, Christ, R-Truth could make this work. R-Truth could actually, this is kind of the role he was born to play. He could provide the much-needed levity for all of this.
He reminds you that wrestling doesn't make sense, and has it ever made less sense than this right now?
Could we see a return of Little Jimmy tonight, then?
Well, we're all little Jimmies now.
He's in the crowd.
An audience full of little Jimmys. Nice to see you, little Jimmy, again. He's exactly the kind of person who could just storm his way into that empty gym and convince you that he thinks this is just a normal arena. He could do it beat for beat in such a way that would be absurd, but in character for him, and kind of make at least one segment on this program work.
Especially with all of his John Cena, you can't see me, but he can't see them gimmick, or, as people were saying on Friday night.
Do you know who's due a Stone Cold Stunner? Might take it for the gifts and would give them something to on Friday is Triple H.
Just shut up.
Like, after Friday, he was full of pops, but he was a dickhead, wasn't he? He was a bit of a bully, bit of a piece of shit. Like, he takes a stunner off Steve Austin And then he returns to the gym on Friday night, even more annoyed with Michael Cole, kicks the cat even harder than he did last week. Like, oh, I heard you laughing at the desk. Of course, I heard you because there was nobody else there. Like, it was audible from the ring. I heard you laughing. And this becomes its own narrative. The longer we are in this building, the more we're going to turn it into like a high school play. This is not like we've run out of storylines because we've run out of wrestlers. Half of them are in self-isolation, whatever. Like, this is just a period where it's sort of like NXT Redemption would be the example. This is a show that only exists because it has to, not because it really should, or not because the rest have anything to do. So all the angles exist only in this world and no other world.
You mentioned the Undertaker tonight. One of the few things that we are supposedly guaranteed for tonight's Monday Night Raw is a contract signing between Undertaker and AJ Styles, again, for a match at a show which I guess the majority of WWE fans don't expect to happen.
Well, a huge portion of them can't even go because there's a travel ban. I don't know the statistics off the top of my head for how many European-based WrestleMania fans there have been over the years since it become this big festival towards which you travel, but it's not happening. So it's
I'd be amazed if it wasn't at least 10,000 from like an 80,000 crowd.
Oh, yeah,
that
absolutely.
feels conservative as well.
Absolutely. I mean, someone's going to go through a table and it's going to be a bit louder than normal.
It's going to be Carl Anderson,
It's
probably.
It's going to be the most realistic contract signing in wrestling history because it's going to take place with nobody there to watch it, as most contract signings should. Like, nobody's ever stopped to think, should we stop putting these in the ring? Because the admin is not getting done. Like,
I just sense that it's a bad time to be a part of the club if your name's not AJ Styles tonight.
it's a bad time to be in the Edge and Randy Orton angle because imagine if you get a concussion.
You know what it is? It's a bad time.
It's a bad time. Like, what if you get a concussion in that? Like, that concerto spot remains. Like, there's an element of danger to it.
Makes me terrified every time they can do it, even if it's not with Edge.
For the betterment of everybody, they've moved away from this kind of like chair shots to the head or too much like emphasis on head-related work, and yet the concerto is back because it kind of makes sense for the context of the story. It's being delivered by those that can be trusted to do it. Edge is taking it, and Edge is giving it. It shouldn't really exist outside of that. But tonight might be the night that needs to deliver one. And like some young guy is like, hey, you know when like you were younger and you were training, like all our WWE Performance Center coaches saying, don't waste that in here. You need to save that for when we put you on a takeover. Yeah, can you take 2 chairs to the head in front of nobody, please? It's going to be fine. Like,
You know what I think is going to happen tonight with Edge? Because obviously there's more talk about repercussions with this storyline, and people are speculating whether or not they should just blow this off in some sort of big empty arena match if Mania's not going ahead. We'll leave that discussion for another time, but it'd be the most WWE thing to be like, oh, look, it's Christian. No one there to celebrate it. What do you see happening with Edge tonight?
I've got absolutely no idea because I've got no idea about anything anymore. My perception of everything has been completely disrupted to the point where we're at the point of the movie now where some unshaggable boffin is telling us of our impending doom, and we're all kind of looking at this boffin and thinking, oh, he wants to shag him. He's a dog. You know what? The news he's given us is pretty inconvenient. So... Screw that guy. I mean, that's where we're at. For Edge on the show, that
Boffin in this example, Matt Hardy, and then Lita just goes looking for Edge. Is that? No. On this day, he sees clearly because there's no other fans in the way.
Right, that is his patter. So stop that for a start. I just think that I've been derailed because I know someone in the comments section go, unshaggable boffin. Talk about yourself there, pal. So I'm going to have to get on the right frame of mind here to collect my thoughts.
That goddamn mirror.
Realistically, if we're being generous and if I'm trying to approach it in good faith, like I'm actually anticipating your Edges and your Austins and your Undertakers and your Randy Ortons because they're like next level performers.
Save the day, lads.
Whether I like them in the ring or not. And if anyone can make congruous this ridiculously... just jarring scenario, it's someone like Edge with the gravitas that he's developed, that he always had, but that he's particularly developed since his injury and through the parameters of the storyline. He could cut one hell of a promo in this ring. Fans be damned, because it's not the kind of like catchphrase heavy, crowd appeal, suck up kind of promo. He here really should be outlining his motivation to go for Randy Orton, his entire motivation for coming back. He could cut like a really earthy promo that can benefit from the intimacy of all of this.
Finally, do you see Shayna Baszler and Becky Lynch coming to blows tonight?
The best ever moment in any part of the angle between Shayna Baszler and Becky Lynch was a sit-down interview away from a live crowd. So much like a Cedric's example with Edge, they could probably benefit from having less like showy, daft idea-related stuff when they're at their best, when they're being the most intense versions of themselves. I'm not saying that has to be the build for every wrestling match, but with these two particular characters, the premise should simply be, I'm harder than you. Well, I'm harder than you. And it was built magnificently for the Survivor Series 3, that ultimately failed, but the build led us to believe it wouldn't. So why not just use this? One of Sidgwick's brilliant pet hates, which is why I thought you would enjoy this more. No wrestler on any of these shows can use the phrase each and every one of you, because there is literally nobody to reference, so they won't be given that cliched like dirge to spout. This is actually an opportunity for this angle.
Yeah, I'd say so, but where's it going?
Well,
That's the question with everything, isn't it? Where is it heading?
The best wrestling that we watch in a week sometimes flounders without a destination, and like Raw can't afford to not have a destination, so it's going to a mythical WrestleMania that Vince McMahon will sit in the Tampa Mayor's office to fight for.
Winchester Mania.
Winchester Mania.
It's going to be very, very intriguing tonight's Monday Night Raw, especially after SmackDown this week. Let us know your thoughts ahead of Monday Night Raw, though, in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. And watch there, follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
Follow Michael Sidgwick at
Sidgwick.
Follow me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE. As I said, my thanks to the Dadley Boyz. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.